God, here I am again, my heart heavy with the weight of what others might think of me. You know how I wake up some mornings and the first thought isn't gratitude for a new day, but worry about how I'll be perceived. You see me standing in front of my closet, changing clothes 3 times because I'm afraid someone might judge my choices. You watch me rehearse conversations in my head, trying to predict every possible reaction, every sideways glance, every whispered comment. This need for approval has become like a chain around my soul, and I'm tired of carrying it. You created me with unique gifts and a distinct purpose, yet I find myself constantly trying to fit into boxes that others have built. Help me remember that your opinion is the only one that truly matters in this moment. Lord, I confess that I've made idols out of human approval. I've placed the thoughts and opinions of people who don't even know my heart above your perfect love for me. When I was a little girl, I remember feeling so free, so unashamed of who I was, but somewhere along the way, the voices of others became louder than your voice. I started believing that my worth depended on how many people liked my posts, how many invitations I received, how impressed others were with my accomplishments. I began measuring my value by external validation rather than the truth that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. The exhaustion of this performance is overwhelming. God, I'm tired of being a chameleon, changing colors to match whatever environment I'm in. I want to return to that childlike confidence, knowing that I am loved unconditionally by the Creator of the universe. Father, you see how this people-pleasing spirit has affected every area of my life. In my marriage, I sometimes agree when I should speak up, afraid that conflict might make my spouse think less of me. With my children, I worry that other parents judge my parenting choices, so I second-guess decisions that I know in my heart are right for our family. At work, I take on extra responsibilities not because I feel called to serve, but because I'm terrified of being seen as incompetent or unwilling. Even in my friendships, I find myself saying yes when I mean no, overextending myself to maintain an image of being the helpful, accommodating friend. This isn't love, God. This is bondage. I'm living my life for an audience of people instead of living authentically before you. Break these chains that have bound me for so long, and teach me to find my identity in your unwavering love. Jesus, I think about how you lived your earthly life, and I'm amazed by your freedom from human opinion. The religious leaders criticized you for eating with tax collectors and sinners, but you didn't change your mission to gain their approval. The crowds wanted to make you an earthly king, but you remained true to your Father's plan. Even your own family sometimes didn't understand your purpose, yet you continued walking in divine truth. When you were beaten, mocked, and crucified, you could have called down legions of angels to prove your worth to the watching world, but instead you chose love over reputation. You cared more about pleasing the Father than impressing the crowd. Teach me this same holy indifference to human opinion. Help me understand that living for applause is a prison, but living for your approval is perfect freedom. Show me how to love people without needing their validation in return. God, I bring before you specific situations where fear of judgment has held me back. There's that creative project I've been putting off because I'm afraid people will think it's silly or unprofessional. There's the boundary I need to set with a family member, but I keep avoiding it because I don't want to be labeled as difficult or unloving. There's the truth I need to speak in a relationship, but I'm terrified of how it might change their perception of me. There's the dream you've placed in my heart that I keep pushing down because others might not understand or support it. I've been living in a cage of my own making, with bars constructed from imaginary judgments and potential criticism. But you haven't called me to a life of hiding and people-pleasing. You've called me to boldness, authenticity, and courageous love. Give me the strength to step out of this self-imposed prison and into the freedom you've designed for me. Lord, I realize that my fear of others' opinions often stems from my own insecurities and past wounds. Maybe it started when I was teased in school for being different, or when a teacher made a comment that made me feel small. Perhaps it began when I failed at something publicly and felt the sting of embarrassment. These experiences taught me that being vulnerable is dangerous, that authenticity leads to rejection. So I learned to hide behind masks, to present only the polished version of myself that I thought others would accept. But living behind masks is exhausting, God. It's lonely and inauthentic, and it prevents others from knowing and loving the real me. You never intended for me to live this way. You created me to be known, to be authentic, to be vulnerable in healthy ways. Heal those old wounds that keep me trapped in performance mode, and help me trust that the right people will love me for who I truly am, not for who I pretend to be. Father, I want to understand what healthy boundaries look like in relationships. I've confused being loving with being agreeable, but I'm learning that sometimes love requires saying no. Sometimes love means disappointing people in order to honor what you've called me to do. Help me discern when someone's disapproval is actually confirmation that I'm moving in the right direction. Not everyone will understand the path you've designed for my life, and that's okay. Abraham left everything familiar because you called him to, even though others probably thought he was crazy. Moses faced criticism from his own people while leading them to freedom. David was misunderstood by his brothers and even by King Saul. Your servants throughout history have faced disapproval and misunderstanding, yet they remained faithful to your calling. Give me this same resolve to follow you regardless of popular opinion. God, I pray for wisdom to distinguish between constructive feedback and destructive criticism. You do use other people to speak truth into my life, and I don't want to become so defensive that I miss genuine correction or guidance. Help me receive input with a humble heart while not allowing every comment to devastate my sense of worth. Show me how to filter advice through your truth rather than immediately accepting or rejecting it based on my emotional reaction. When someone offers genuine concern born from love, help me receive it gracefully. When someone speaks from their own hurt or agenda, help me have compassion for them without internalizing their words. Grant me the discernment to know the difference and the courage to respond appropriately in both situations. For those watching, there's a special ebook in our pinned comment called Don't Think, Trust and Surrender that can help ease anxiety symptoms. Remember, this complements but doesn't replace professional guidance. Jesus, I think about the woman caught in adultery who was brought before you. The crowd was ready to stone her, filled with judgment and condemnation, but you saw her heart. You didn't minimize her sin, but you also didn't allow their judgment to define her worth. Instead, you offered forgiveness and a new beginning. When they tried to trap you with their questions about her punishment, you calmly wrote in the sand and reminded them of their own shortcomings. One by one, they walked away, convicted by their own consciences. You alone remained, offering grace instead of condemnation. This is how I want to live, God. Free from the fear of human judgment because I'm secure in your love and forgiveness. Help me remember that the opinions of imperfect people cannot diminish the perfect love you have for me. Lord, I confess that sometimes I judge others just as harshly as I fear they judge me. When I'm insecure about my own choices, I find myself criticizing others to make myself feel better. When I see someone living boldly and authentically, sometimes I feel threatened instead of inspired. This cycle of judgment and fear of judgment needs to be broken in my life. Help me extend the same grace to others that I desperately need for myself. When I stop judging others so harshly, perhaps I'll also stop imagining that they're judging me so critically. Teach me to celebrate other people's successes instead of comparing myself to them. Show me how to encourage others in their authenticity so that I can find courage for my own. Father, there are moments when I feel so overwhelmed by social media and the constant comparison it invites. I scroll through perfectly curated feeds and feel inadequate about my real messy life. I post something and then anxiously check for likes and comments, allowing those numbers to determine my mood for the day. I see others seeming so confident and successful, and I wonder what's wrong with me that I struggle with doubt and fear. But you remind me that social media shows highlight reels, not behind-the-scenes reality. Everyone struggles, everyone has insecurities, everyone faces challenges that they don't post online. Help me use these platforms in healthy ways, sharing authentically without seeking validation, and consuming content without falling into comparison traps. Let my identity be rooted in your love, not in digital approval. God, I want to teach my children to be free from this bondage to others' opinions. I see my daughter sometimes changing her preferences to match her friends, and my heart breaks because I recognize myself in her people-pleasing tendencies. I want to model healthy confidence for them, showing them that it's okay to be different, okay to have unpopular opinions, okay to make choices that others don't understand. Help me raise children who know their worth comes from you, not from peer approval. When they face criticism or rejection, may they have the inner strength that comes from knowing they are loved unconditionally by their Creator. Let our home be a safe place where authenticity is celebrated and where being real is more important than being perfect. Give me wisdom to guide them toward healthy relationships with people who will love them for who they truly are. Lord Jesus, I think about your words when you said that a prophet is not honored in his hometown. Even you experienced rejection from people who should have known you best. Your own neighbors dismissed you because they thought they knew who you were based on your background and family. They couldn't see past their preconceived notions to recognize the divine gift standing before them. If you, the perfect Son of God, experienced human rejection and misunderstanding, then I can expect the same. This doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong. It might mean I'm doing something right. Help me find comfort in knowing that you understand the pain of being misunderstood, of having your motives questioned, of being rejected by people whose approval you might have naturally desired. You are my example of how to love people while remaining free from their opinions. Father, I pray for breakthrough in specific relationships where fear has kept me bound. There's that family member who always has something critical to say, and I've been walking on eggshells around them for years. There's that friend who seems to enjoy making subtle digs that leave me feeling small and insecure. There's that coworker who never seems satisfied with my efforts, no matter how hard I try. Instead of continuing to exhaust myself trying to win their approval, help me love them from a place of security in you. Show me how to respond with grace when they're critical, but also give me the courage to protect my heart from unnecessary toxicity. Sometimes loving people means maintaining appropriate distance when their words or actions consistently tear down rather than build up. God, I realize that my people-pleasing often comes from a desire to control how others see me, but ultimately, I cannot control anyone's perceptions or reactions. People will form opinions based on their own experiences, insecurities, and biases, regardless of how perfectly I try to present myself. Some people are determined to misunderstand me no matter what I do. Others might judge me for choices that are actually right and healthy. Trying to manage everyone's opinion of me is like trying to control the weather. It's impossible and exhausting. Release me from this burden that was never mine to carry. Help me focus on being faithful to you and authentic in my relationships, trusting that the people who are meant to be in my life will appreciate the real me. Lord, I want to understand the difference between godly wisdom and people-pleasing. Sometimes I think I'm being loving and considerate when I'm actually being driven by fear. Help me discern when I should consider others' input and when I should move forward despite their disapproval. Your word says to seek counsel from wise advisors, but it also tells me that fear of man is a snare. Show me how to balance humility and confidence, how to receive correction without being crushed by criticism, how to love others without losing myself in the process. When you call me to do something that others don't understand, give me the courage to obey anyway. When you ask me to speak truth that might be unpopular, help me do it with love but without compromise. Jesus, I remember how you responded to criticism throughout your ministry. When the Pharisees accused you of being a glutton and drunkard because you ate with sinners, you didn't defend your reputation. You explained your mission. When they criticized you for healing on the Sabbath, you used it as a teaching opportunity about true compassion. When they questioned your authority, you pointed them to the Father. You never seemed anxious about your image or worried about what people thought. Your confidence came from knowing who you were and whose you were. This is the freedom I long for, to be so secure in my identity as your beloved child that I can serve others without needing their applause, speak truth without fearing their rejection, and love authentically without requiring their approval in return. Father, there are dreams and callings you've placed in my heart that I've been afraid to pursue because they might seem unconventional or risky to others. Maybe it's starting that ministry, writing that book, launching that business, or making that major life change. I've been waiting for permission from people who may never understand your plan for my life. But you didn't ask Noah what his neighbors thought about building an ark. You didn't survey public opinion before calling Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. You didn't require approval from religious leaders before sending Jesus to earth. Your plans often seem foolish to human wisdom, but they accomplish purposes that we can't imagine. Give me the faith to step forward in obedience to you, even when it means stepping away from the comfort of human approval. God, I pray for healing from the wounds that criticism has left in my heart. There are words spoken over me years ago that I still hear echoing in my mind. Comments about my appearance, my abilities, my choices, my personality. They've all left marks that affect how I see myself today. Some of these wounds came from people who were supposed to love and protect me, making them even deeper and more confusing. But you are the God who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. You can take the very experiences that were meant to destroy my confidence and use them to develop compassion and strength. Help me forgive those who have hurt me, not because they deserve it, but because holding on to offense keeps me bound to their opinions. Free me from the power of their words so that your voice can become the loudest one in my life. Lord, I want to learn how to celebrate authenticity in others without feeling threatened by their confidence. When I see someone living boldly and unapologetically, instead of feeling insecure, help me feel inspired. Show me that their freedom doesn't diminish my worth. It actually points toward the possibility of my own liberation. Surround me with people who encourage authenticity rather than conformity, who celebrate uniqueness rather than demanding sameness. Help me be this kind of friend to others as well, creating space for them to be real without judgment or comparison. Let our relationships be marked by mutual encouragement toward the fullness of who you've created each of us to be. Father, sometimes the opinions I fear most are from within the church community. I worry that other believers will judge my questions, my struggles, my imperfections. I'm afraid to admit when I don't have all the answers or when I'm wrestling with doubt. I feel pressure to present a perfect Christian image, to always have the right words, to never show weakness or uncertainty. But this pressure is not from you, Lord. You invite me to come as I am, with all my questions and struggles. You're not intimidated by my doubts or disappointed by my imperfections. Help me find Christian community where authenticity is welcomed, where growth is celebrated over perfection, where questions are met with grace rather than judgment. Show me how to be this kind of safe person for others who are struggling with their own fears and insecurities. Jesus, you said that your yoke is easy and your burden is light, but I've been carrying the heavy burden of trying to please everyone. This weight has made me tired, anxious, and resentful. I've lost sight of the joy and freedom that come from walking in your truth. You never promised that following you would make me popular with everyone, but you did promise that your truth would set me free. Help me exchange this burden of people-pleasing for the lighter burden of pleasing you alone. Your expectations are clear, your love is unconditional, and your approval doesn't fluctuate based on my performance. This is the solid foundation I want to build my life on, not the shifting sand of human opinion. God, I pray for courage to have difficult conversations that I've been avoiding out of fear. There are relationships where I need to speak truth in love, but I've been silent because I'm afraid of conflict or rejection. There are boundaries I need to establish, but I've hesitated because I don't want to seem mean or unloving. There are dreams I need to pursue, but I've been waiting for encouragement that may never come. You have not given me a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and sound judgment. Help me act on this truth, speaking and living with holy boldness that comes from knowing I am loved and accepted by you. When I face opposition or misunderstanding, remind me that you are my defender and my vindication. Lord, I think about the parable of the talents and how the servant who buried his talent did so out of fear. He was so afraid of his master's potential disapproval that he chose to do nothing rather than risk failure. I see myself in this story sometimes, hiding the gifts and dreams you've given me because I'm afraid of criticism or failure. But you didn't give me talents to bury them in the ground of fear. You gave them to be used, developed, and multiplied for your glory and the benefit of others. Help me step out of the paralysis that fear of judgment has created in my life. Give me the courage to risk failure, to accept that not everyone will appreciate my efforts, and to find joy in using the gifts you've entrusted to me regardless of others' reactions. Father, as I near the end of this prayer, I feel a shift happening in my heart. The weight of needing everyone's approval is beginning to lift, replaced by a lightness that comes from remembering whose I am. You have called me by name, you have redeemed me, you have chosen me as your own. The God of the universe delights in me, not because of what I do or how others perceive me, but because of who I am in you. This truth is more powerful than any criticism, more valuable than any human approval, more lasting than any earthly recognition. Let this truth sink deep into my soul, transforming how I see myself and how I move through the world. I am your beloved daughter, and that identity is unshakable regardless of what anyone else thinks. God, I commit to living from this place of security in your love. When someone criticizes me, I will remember that their opinion doesn't define my worth. When someone rejects me, I will remember that I am accepted by you. When someone misunderstands me, I will remember that you know my heart perfectly. When someone disapproves of my choices, I will remember that your approval is all I need. This doesn't mean I'll become arrogant or dismissive of others, but it means I'll love them from a place of fullness rather than neediness. I'll serve them out of joy rather than obligation. I'll speak truth because it's right, not because it's popular. Transform me, Lord, from someone who seeks to please people into someone who seeks to please you. Make me a woman who walks in freedom, authenticity, and courageous love. I want to live the rest of my life as someone who is more concerned with your smile than with human applause. If you've been touched by this prayer, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear these words. God bless you, dear sister.